Hi guys, it's Julia here, and I wanted to talk about one of my all-time favorite activities. And I know that I've already done like a million videos on different kinds of dictations, but this one's different. This one's not like the rest of them. So let's see what it's all about. Let's just dive in, and I hope you will like it as much as I do. A Dictogloss. Now, I'm sure many of you have heard about it. I'm sure many of you have tried it. And I'm here to get more of you to know it and to try it and to like it. So yeah, that's my mission for the day. So to start with, we're just going to look at the step-by-step of the activity, what you do, how it works, and then we'll break it down into details. So step number 1, you choose or you write a short text. You set up a just listening task, not a reading, because you don't want them to see it before you do the rest of the stages. So a listening task. You're going to read it at natural speed, and students do the gist task, right? So what I often do is, because I like teaching lessons about myself, my texts are very often about me and my plans or the things that I did. My gist/lead-in will be like, "Ooh, what did Yulia do last weekend?" They brainstorm, and then I read, and then they check their predictions, and they need to see if their ideas were correct or not. So that's what I usually do for a gist. Now, once that's done, you're going to read again, and they will write down some keywords or maybe just short notes, but it's not a dictation. They don't need to write sentences at this point. Then, once that's done, they need to work together and they reconstruct the text. When I say reconstruct, you want to focus on the meaning, not the form. So if they use a different POV, for example, that's fine, as long as the meaning of what they're saying is the same. They can also use synonyms and not the exact words that you used. Like that's not the point. Once that's done, they compare their text with their original text, and you make them notice the gap, or they notice the gap themselves, which is even better. Steps 4 and 5, you might have to do it more than once. I usually do it at least twice, but if they do it and you see that they don't really need to hear it again, great. But there's nothing wrong with repeating that cycle a couple more times. So that's the activity. Now, to give you an example, this is a text that I could use with like a B2 operant class. So it's 7 sentences. As you might notice, the target language is narrative tenses. I underlined it, but it's just for the video. I wouldn't give it to them with the sentences being underlined already, because that's something that we would focus on a bit later on. But yeah, that's about the size you want. And then an example clarification. Now, I only focus on the first sentence, but you want, whenever it's this stage, you want to take what they produced, take what you had in your original sentence, in your original text, and then compare those and make them notice how they're different. First of all, in terms of meaning, and then everything else, like form, pronunciation, if you notice something. So, for example, in my text, I had past simple and past perfect. Maybe my hypothetical students produced a sentence where everything was in past simple. So that would be my starting point. I wouldn't teach them. I would elicit. I'd be like, right, let's look at the 2 sentences. Is the meaning the same? And then just like that, trying to work through all of the sentences or all of the things that need to be covered. Now, it's hard to predict what your clarification or feedback stage would be like before you actually teach the lesson, because unlike doing a text-based thing where you have like a very clear clarification stage and you know what you're going to test, and you know that if they don't get it, I will teach them. At this point, if you're doing a Dictogloss, you don't really know what they'll struggle with until you see them in action and until they produce something. Whoosh. Hope I'm back. Now, reasons to love Dictoglosses. A little disclaimer. I've heard many teachers, including some CELTA tutors and CELTA assessors, tell me that they hate Dictoglosses. They never do them. And that's fine. It's okay. I can't relate to that, but that's fine. We're all different. But I hope that I can convert you non-believers and make you love Dictogloss as much as I love it. So, reason number 1, obviously integrates all the skills. Well, not all the skills, not reading really, but your listening, writing, speaking, and grammar comes in as well, which is not really a skill, but it's a system they deal with on a daily basis. So yeah. Then also it promotes noticing the gap, because you don't start teaching a lesson with the assumption that they know nothing and need to teach them everything about the target language. You start a lesson with the assumption that they know something and there are little gaps, and you want them to notice the gaps and how far their production is from where they want to be. Apart from that, it also promotes noticing the meaning form mapping, which is, again, like in my example, I had a whole bunch of narrative tenses. And on the one hand, yes, they all deal with the past, but then they all express slightly different aspects of the past. And that's what meaning form mapping is. Because what happens is very often students end up overusing past simple for everything. Or if we speak future forms, they overuse will for everything. But then that affects their meaning. That makes their message a little bit unclear. And that's what a Dictogloss is supposed to tackle. That's what your clarification stage is for. You elicit how what they said is different from what you are trying to say, and how form affects meaning, basically. So yeah, good stuff. Then also a Dictogloss lets you respond to your students' needs better. Again, because whatever you teach them is based on what they produce. It's a very reactive kind of teaching. Good stuff again. Reduces your TTT because you're not going to spend time talking about something they already know. And how will you know that they know? Well, if they're able to hear it, recognize it, and then produce it, they know it. You can also use it to teach a number of structures, and not everything, not all the grammar could be taught through a Dictogloss. But this is especially useful for structures that are similar and that students might overgeneralize and like, oh, past is a past teacher. Yes, but there are different aspects to the past, right? Same goes for future, same goes for modal verbs. You could also do passive active. You can do things like register. So not all the grammar can be taught through this, but a lot of structures. As you can see, many of those just come down to raising your students' awareness of their own production and of the language that they're trying to learn, and how they can get there, what they need to improve to get to where they want to be. Now, some things to remember if you do a Dictogloss. Number 1, don't make the text too long or too difficult. Obviously, we've already spoken about this, but if your text is too long, they might not engage with it as well, and it might get frustrating, and you really don't need it to be long. You will see everything you need to see with a text that's like 7 sentences long. That's fine. And when I say that it shouldn't be too difficult, I mean that you should probably use very simple lexis, something that's very straightforward, something that's not going to pose an additional challenge to your students without need, because there's literally no need for that. You've got your target language, you know what you're testing, stick to that. Also, make the text interesting. So just like with any other materials you're using in your classroom, really build it around the topic that you know they enjoy. Make it personal, right? All of my Dictoglosses, I feel like they're always about me. And like, I mean, as I've said, I love making lessons about myself. But again, it's something that your students engage we're all different, but your students might respond to that a little bit better if it's personalized. So yeah. Then set your expectations. Like I've said, they don't need to produce an identical text. Like, it's fine if they use synonyms. It's fine if the POV is different. It's just the meaning. So you need the meaning to be the same. in the text that they produce. So make sure they know it, because otherwise they might get a bit overwhelmed trying to listen to every single word, and just being frustrated at the end. So don't. Read at natural speed. Do not slow down just because you want them to get everything. Again, this is supposed to imitate real life listening. So if they get it, they get it. If they don't get it, you're going to teach them. That's it. Then, when they are busy reconstructing the text, you're going to monitor and listen for things that you need to mention in feedback. There might be a good discussion, be like, oh, is it this or this? Do we say this or this? So make sure to address it. I mean, obviously, if it's worth addressing, if it was a good discussion. So only focus on your target language in clarification. I know it's very tempting at times to start talking about spelling, to start talking about synonyms. Like in my text that I showed you a couple of slides back, there were a lot of phrasal verbs, right? But if they avoid using phrasal verbs, I'm not going to mention it because I'm not teaching them phrasal verbs. I'm teaching them something else. I'm teaching them narrative tenses. So only stick to that. Don't teach them everything. Teach them what you're supposed to be teaching them. Compare and contrast and feedback. Again, it's called feedback for a reason. The best way is to take a sentence they produced, take the original sentence and compare those and see if they mean the same thing. Again, meaning is the main thing. You go from meaning to, right, okay, they don't mean the same thing. Now, what's the form that is responsible for those two different meanings, for example, right? Or yes, they do mean the same thing. So these two structures are identical. Great, amazing. So don't just use your text to teach them. Always use what they produce, because that's the whole reason for making them go through all those stages and making them reproduce the text and listen to it again and again, is because you want to see what they can do and then compare it to what you want them to be able to do. Right. And that's really all I have to say about Dictoglosses. I hope if you were skeptical, I hope I was able to convey what a great activity it is. You're not going to do it every single lesson. I probably do it a couple of times a year, but there are certain things that are best taught through a Dictogloss, in my opinion. Again, you might disagree, but I think things like narrative tenses, conditionals, in my head, it's just such a natural way to teach those and to convey the different meanings. Yeah, so that's all I have to say. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. And follow me on Instagram, where I post more things about methodology. I also post some of my daily teaching routine stuff and just some lesson ideas, share what I do in my classroom. Basically, keep in touch. Thank you for watching. More videos are coming. Thank you. Bye.